arbitration, litigation, and escrow disbursement. I want you to research those. I'm not going to fill them in for you. You're going to go in the book and you're going to look at the mail. You're going to know what is what. You need to understand litigation more so than anything else. Remember, under litigation, you have a bill of interpleader and you have a declaratory decree. We're all good? All right, moving on. Now, you work for a broker. The broker doesn't want to pay you. Who can you sue? If you go work for a new broker, can you sue the new broker?
No.
No, you got to sue the person that what? Owes you the money. If you're working with a customer or a client, they don't want to pay you, can you sue them directly? No. You go to the broker, you ask the broker to sue them. If the broker doesn't sue them, what do? Sue the broker. The only person you can sue is the broker. I would write down, I can only sue the broker, no one else. Okay, write down the 10-10-60 rule. You're going to need to know it. You're going to need to know that if you change your employer, you need to notify in 10 days. You change your mailing address, 10 days. You become a non-resident of Florida, 60 days. You need to know those by heart. Okay. I gave you, on page 89 of your book, I gave you 4 businesses that could be registered in the state of Florida as a brokerage. Sole proprietor, general partnership, right? Corporation, and limited partnership. All of those can be registered as a what? Brokerage. Now, if I'm a partnership, a general partnership, brokerage, right? And all the general partners want to practice real estate, what type of license do they need? They need a what? They need a broker's license, not a real estate license. They need a broker's license. So you have to turn around and do what? You need a broker's license, nothing else. Okay? Can anybody be a limited partner? Yes. License or not, you can be a limited partner. Can anybody be a shareholder in a corporation? Yes. In a corporation, anybody can be a shareholder. Can a sales associate, broker associate be a general partner?
No.
No. Can a sales associate, broker associate be an officer or director?
No.
No. In a corporation, the broker has to be a what? An officer, and he's got to be an active broker. Okay? You got to remember this stuff by heart. I need you to research those 4. Make sure you know them inside out. You need to know that a joint venture is a temporary agreement. A joint venture is a temporary agreement. Right? By the way, if you're a brokerage company, do you have to register with the DRE? Yes, it's in there. Matter of fact, if you read, it says, which of the following may register with the DRE to provide brokerage services? That's what it says on that page. Flipping on. All right, let's go to chapter 6. Okay, you need to know what is a second-degree misdemeanor. You need to know what a second-degree misdemeanor is. You need to know what a first-degree misdemeanor, and you need to know what a third-degree felony is. Again, you need to know what concealment, misrepresentation, culpable negligence, and conversion means. If you forget to pick up an escrow check, could you be charged with culpable negligence?
Yes.
Yes. Okay? And in Florida, is culpable negligence, even though it's an error, could you be charged with fraud? Yes. Do you know that culpable negligence is a second-degree misdemeanor? Which is what I told you. You could do 60 days in jail, pay a $500 fine, and have a second-degree misdemeanor on your record. So you have to be very careful. Dot your I's and cross your T's. Okay, let's see. If you find out that there's a lien on a property, can you sell that property?
No.
No. If you find out that there's a lien, or you can call it, the title is not merchantable, you must notify all parties. If there's a lien / title is not merchantable, must notify all parties. You cannot go forward.
Not merchantable.
Merchantable, marketable, either way, it means the same thing. It's not sellable. It's not the way it is. Okay, if I tell you, so let's do it this way. Lotteries, let's do it this way. Lotteries that don't include money or the requirement to purchase anything in Florida are legal. Lotteries that don't require money or the need to purchase anything in Florida are legal.
Yes.
They are, but I want you to write that down. That way you remember, they're legal. Okay? They're legal. If you have to pay for something, then it becomes illegal. All right, legally sufficient, you need to understand what that means. You need to research it. The best example I can give you is you are a realtor, someone tells you read the lease for them and interpret it, and you charge them money. Is that within the scope of your license? No. If you do that, you're practicing what? Law. That would be a legally sufficient complaint. Okay? Now, let's go to the next one. You need to know when you go to a formal hearing, the administrative judge has certain powers. Can the administrative law judge subpoena a witness? Yes. An administrative law judge can subpoena a witness, take oath, compel you to even show up in court. Okay? Now, FREC has issued a final order. If you disagree with the final order, can you go to the District Court of Appeals?
Yes.
Yes. Right? You can go to the District Court of Appeals. How is the Florida Recovery Fund funded? Fines and fees. Right? The Florida Real Estate Recovery Fund is funded through fines and fees. If you're a realtor and you were either buying or selling and someone took advantage of you and you lost money, can you go to the Florida Recovery Fund and collect? Yes. You have to do the same thing everybody else does. You have to sue them. You have to get a judgment. You have to try to collect as much money. And then you can go to the Florida Recovery Fund to collect any fees. Okay? You'll be good to go. By the way, all of this stuff I'm telling you is good for 5 different tests at Gold Coast. What I'm telling you right now is good for 5 different tests. So if you go home and you've taken good notes, you research this, you should not fail your test. There should be no reason you should bomb. The only difference is you're the reader, I'm not. I do everything I can to make sure you do what? Pass this course. Okay? Chapter 7. On Chapter 7, you have to know steering, you have to know block busting, and you have to know redlining. Okay? You have to know that all 3 of those were from 1968. Federal House, 1968. Okay, now.
That was chapter 7.
Chapter 7. I'm on Chapter 7. You have to know steering, redlining, and block busting. Bottom line. Okay? You have to know that with the American Disability Act, is it mandatory that you make modifications to an existing building for a handicapped person to get through? And the answer is no. It has to be economically feasible and readily achievable. It's my example. In New York City, in the Village, am I required to put an apartment building, put an elevator in an apartment building that doesn't have one? No. I'm not required. First of all, I have to figure out where I could put it. Second of all, I gotta get the city to approve it because the building could do what? It could shift. Right? It has to be economically feasible and readily achievable. Okay, so that covers that. All right. you need to remember, under the Landlord-Tenant Act, there are 3 ways you can hold money. Under the Landlord-Tenant Act, there are 3 ways you can hold money. You can put the money in a non-interest bearing account, which means nobody gets any money. Non-interest bearing account. No one gets any money. You can put it in an interest bearing account, and you can give them 75% of what you actually earn, or 5% simple interest, right? The other option is you want to commingle the money. So I want you to write, I want to commingle the money. I must take out a surety bond. If I want to commingle the money, I have to take out a surety bond. I have to pay them 5% interest. Those are the only ways you can handle the money. Now, where are the money supposed to be located?
Florida.
In Florida. The same way that the what? The broker has to hold it. Okay?
Has to pay 7%, you said? Is it?
5%. Oh, it's
5%.
always 5, never 7. So it's 5% simple interest. Okay. Do not call list. Make sure you go back and look at the do not call list. I want you to look at the federal, and I want you to pay close attention. In the federal, you cannot call the FSBO to solicit the listing. You can call the FSBO and say you have a what? Buyer. You can call them and tell them you have a buyer, but you can't try to do what? Solicit the listing. If you try to do that, that's a $40,000 fine. Okay, chapter 8. You have to go back and read what is riparian. What is riparian? That means river, right? You have to go back to littoral, which means what? Lake. This is when your land is close to water. Make sure you go back in there and read that stuff. You have to know what real property is. Okay? Real property is the physical land and the improvements, as well as intangible interests and rights. You have to know what erosion and accretion are. The opposite of erosion is accretion. The opposite of accretion is what? Erosion. You have to know what they mean. You need to remember IRMA. You must remember IRMA. IRMA is what? Intent, relationship, method of annexation, adaptation of article. We went over what was called the bundle of rights. The bundle of rights is deep C, not utility. Deep C, not utility. D is disposition, then you get enjoyment, exclusion, possession, and control. Not utility. Utility is a characteristic of what? Value. We just learned that tonight. Okay, so you got to go back and read what tenancy in common is. You got to go back and read what estate and severalty means. Remember, estate and severalty, how many owners? One, there's no co-ownership. Everything else has a what? Co-ownership. So write this down this way. Tenancy in common, joint tenancy, tenancy in common, joint tenancy, and tenancy by entirety. All 3 of those have what? Co-ownership. All tenancy by entirety. That's husband and wife. So you got tenancy in common, joint tenancy, and tenancy by entirety. They all have what? Co-ownership. Estate and severalty, no co-ownership. You need to go back and read those because one of them has inheritability and one of them has what? Survivorship. You have to know that inside out. Okay. You need to know what a life estate is. In a life estate, you have the grantor, who is the person giving the land. You have the grantee, who is also known as the life tenant. Then, you need to know what a reversion estate is when it goes back to the original owner, and you need to know what a remainder estate when it goes to someone else. Everybody good with that? Now, we need to know what a non-freehold estate is. There are 3. In a non-freehold, you have tenancy at will. You have tenancy by years, definite beginning, definite end, and you have tenancy as sufferance. You need to know all three inside out. Okay. You need to remember in the state of Florida, in Florida, you can own separate property. Okay, you can own property before you got married. You can have property while you got married. If you acquire property while you're married, it has to come in through a gift, or it has to come in through what? Inheritance. And then you're good to go. Okay? Now, in Florida, you need to remember about elective share. Elective share, right? Elective share protects a what? A surviving spouse from an unfair will. It's not automatic. You must go to the court and file. You will get 30% of personal and real property. Now, if your house is by tenancy by entirety, guess what? The deadbeat husband that's dead cannot will it over to the secretary because that has what? Survivorship. If you married a person and they had their own house and you have children, you have homestead rights. Even if you don't have children and the person dies intestate, you have homestead rights. You're entitled to live in that property. And you're entitled to deal with that. So homestead also protects you from a what? An unfair will. You just have to remember this stuff. Does homestead protect you from all debt? No, from all debt. Money you owe, no. There are 5 specific liens you can foreclose. So I would write, homestead does not protect from all debt. There are 5 specific liens. Specific means to the property. Real estate taxes, special assessment, superior liens. Then you got everything else is junior, and they're based on when they were recorded. So you have mortgage, you have a vendor lien, and you have a construction lien. I want you to remember that the construction lien is retroactive. The construction lien is retroactive. Okay. Now, in Florida, you need, write this down, in Florida, you need a real estate license to sell condominiums, co-ops, and timeshares. In Florida, you need a real estate license to sell condominiums, co-ops, and timeshare. So, can you sell a co-op? Yes. Right? You can sell a co-op. Even though a co-op, what do you get? You get a deed or you get stocks? Stocks. You get stocks. You don't need a stockbroker's license. You need to go back and look at the constitutional homestead right. Okay. We're going to do chapter 9, then we're going to call it a night. And then we can finish more later. Constitutional homestead rights. Okay. You need to know what constructive notice is. We're at chapter 9. Chapter 9. You need to know what constructive notice is. You need to know what involuntary alienation is. You need to know the granting clause, the addendum clause. Now, when it comes to a deed, does the grantee need to sign the deed? No. Grantee never signs the deed, only the grantor, and is witnessed by 2 people. If you want to record it, it needs to be what? Notarized. Okay. You need to know what a quitclaim deed is. A quitclaim deed is used to clear a defect and clouds, right? And it's best for who? The grantor or the grantee? So who's the seller though? Who's the seller? The grantor, right? It's best for the grantor. You need to know that a general warranty deed is best for who? The grantee, the buyer. You need to know what eminent domain is. You need to remember that under eminent domain, you cannot refuse to sell. The government can't take your property for private use. It's got to be for public use. If for some reason you fight them, you're going to go through what's called a what? Condemnation proceeding. You have to know this inside out. You have to know what a gross lease is. You have to know what a percentage lease is. You have to know what a net lease is. You have to know what a specific lien is. There's 5 of them. You have to know all 5. You need to remember that real estate taxes are paid before everybody else. You need to know that special assessment is paid before everybody else. So real estate taxes is 1, special assessment is 2. Let me just look at this real quick, because I might be able to do 10. Give me a minute. Let's do 10. We're gonna do chapter 10. What's wrong with you? What happened?
Can't write as quick as you're talking, sorry.
You have to share notes. I gotta catch up. I gotta figure out how much. I'm gonna do more of this. I just gotta get you to look. You gotta take shorthand. I don't know how to use shorthand, but I know how to abbreviate everything I need to do. Okay? Technically, everybody stay quiet for a minute. We're doing one more chapter. Listen, if you can't keep up with me, then you need to go home and do what? Read your freaking highlights. Bottom line. That's bottom line. That's what you should have been doing all month. Right? I've given you, listen, nobody else in the school does this. Nobody does this. Okay? And there are people that have had other instructors, and they know nobody does what I do. So I'm trying to help you so you can get past this, and that way you can focus on the what? State. I don't need you to sit here for another 30 days. And I don't need you to follow me for 2 months. Okay? I get a lot of stalkers. Right? So moving on. Moving on. Chapter 10. You need to remember that meets and bounds is the most accurate method. It's not about you, Jamie. It wasn't about you. There's other people. Don't worry about it. Right? Alright? Meets and bounds is the most accurate method. You need to know what a point of beginning is. It starts in Tallahassee. Okay, we have the point of beginning. You need to know what the characteristics of a township are. You need to remember that it's 6 miles square and it contains how many sections? 36. If I'm in section 1, what's directly north? 36. If I happen to be in 10 and I tell you go west 2, you end up where? No, 8. Okay? If you forget, you need to remember, you start over here on the northeast corner, you go west 6, drop down 1, go this way. You should have 1 through 6 here. You should have 1 through 6 here. This one is going to be 1, this is going to be 6. The bottom one here is going to be 31, and the one over here is going to be 36. Okay, if you remember that, you should not struggle. Look at her. All right.
I know about that one, I know.
All right, you need to remember, if they talk about a guide meridian, a guide meridian, and a correction line that forms a 24 square mile area, you need to pick check. Remember, I gave you 24 equals what? Check. Right? The rest of it's math. Okay, let's talk about survey system. I want you to write survey system for a residential subdivision equals lot and block. Write this down the way I am. I can't keep doing this. Okay? A survey system for a residential subdivision equals lot and block. That's the plat method. You need to remember that the county property appraiser, right, they assign assessor's parcel numbers. Right? They assign assessor parcel numbers. You need to remember that the assessor parcel number equals parcel number. And a parcel number is what, people? It's like a social security number. It uniquely identifies that particular property. All right. All the math that we've gone over for chapter 10 is fair game on the test. All right, I'm not gonna do, let's see, do we have, let me see how much. No, it's gonna take time. We'll finish this, we're on chapter 10, I'll do the rest, we'll do more, okay?
I mean, he might be giving more to you guys, but this is what I got.
Okay, crack, so